Welcome back, DK Shop. Today, we're going to play with Leadwood and stick it on this knife as a handle. Stay tuned. So before we get started, let's go over some basic information on leadwood. So leadwood is a species of bush willow from South Africa. The tree grows up to 64 feet tall, about 2 feet in diameter. The lumber used to be commonly used in high-end furniture. Today, it is only occasionally found for sale as small boards and turning blanks, and it's relatively expensive. So leadwood is the 6th heaviest wood in the world. It actually beats out desert ironwood, which is the 8th heaviest wood in the world. And surprisingly, leadwood is also harder than desert ironwood. It has a Janka hardness of 3,570 pound-feet, whereas ironwood has a Janka hardness of 3,260 pound-feet. Like ironwood, it is said to finish rather well. It has a nice natural luster, and it has very high insect resistance. It is not as dimensionally stable as desert ironwood, though. It shows a lot more movement from what I can find online. So, and as you can tell by just how it looks, ignore this got shipped to me in the thickest coat of wax I have ever seen. It's absolutely ridiculous. Here's a piece I kind of trimmed off the wax of, and you can see it looks a lot like black walnut. So I think this could be appealing to knife makers because black walnut is not the hardest wood in the world. A lot of people really appreciate how black walnut can look, myself included, but as far as the handle goes, sometimes it's a little on the softer side. Sometimes you can dent it with your thumbnail, and it would be nice to have an option that looks very similar, but is just much harder. The harder the wood, the more durable it is, so this will be far more durable than your black walnut. So this is what the scales look like off the saw. Kind of rough looking. Maybe a fine-tooth blade would do a little better. I'm not sure though. It's so dense it might just burn then. But you can see that natural luster right off the saw showing already. So far, Leadwood hasn't been too difficult to work with up to this point of the handle. All the rough shaping is done, and I'm going to start hand sanding, smoothing things out. But only thing I've really noticed, the dust is very, very fine, similar to ironwood. It's kind of an insidious dust. It does like to clog up belts, so you need to use those belt cleaners. I was even using those belt cleaners on my little drums on my drill press just to help keep that sandpaper from clogging up. And at least on my belt sander, I can't slow down the belt speed. So I can only go up to about 220 grit, I found, on my belt sander. Any higher than that, and it burns super quick. I mean, super, super quick. Very similar to a desert ironwood so far. But with that in mind, as knife makers or people who like to make knives or use exotic woods in very small quantities, it's always easier working with it on this scale than making, let's say, a table or a chair out of leadwood. I do imagine that would be a bit more difficult. So very much like ironwood, leadwood seems to look really good at relatively low grits for wood. This is 220 grit, everything's finely smoothed out, and looks pretty decent so far. I'm gonna continue taking it up the grits. So here's the leadwood sitting at 1500 grit. I decided I'm gonna use some Danish oil on this. I would if I was using black walnut, and that's what I'm personally comparing this to. It is porous, like black walnut, and that's why I like Danish oil, and that's why I'm gonna use Danish oil, because it'll kind of help fill in those pores and harden it. Then once the oil is dry, I'll go over it again with 1500 grit, then probably up to 3000 grit. Then I'm gonna buff it, and we'll see how it looks then. And here's how the leadwood came out. I'm very happy with it. It's incredibly smooth, and it finished very, very well. I don't know if I would buff it again. Some of the buffing compound gets stuck in the pores, or maybe I would take a little more time to fill in those pores the next time I use it. But it came out really, really nicely. It's a beautiful wood. So one thing I noticed is there's a great variance in color in the Leadwood. I bought all of this same exact day from the same exact supplier. I bought it from Woodcraft. As you can see, this is a block I used on my knife, and it is incredibly dark. This block is a little lighter, much closer to your standard walnut color. Then this block has its own kind of golden, a light walnut color, you know? So that is something to keep in mind. If you see it for sale on woodcraft.com or something, you want to nab some blocks while they still have them, I would say go for it. Just keep in mind there is going to be some variance in the color. I think they all look good. I think the darker, the more desirable likely. So I'm not sure how common it would be to get a super dark piece like I wound up with. I would say go for it. It finishes and works exactly like desert ironwood. That's the closest wood I can compare it to. And anything super hard and dense like that, like rosewoods and kingwood is another example like that. But it finishes relatively easily. Just sand it smooth, take it up the grips, give it a nice buff, and it's gonna look good. It's gonna look real good, and it's gonna feel great in the hand. It's gonna last a long time. A few things I learned before we get out of here. Keep your sanding speeds low so you don't burn it in higher grits. And on my table saw, a normal rip saw blade did just fine. I had no burning. I think I would stay away from the finer tooth blades. This is a pretty dense and hard wood. A combo blade might get you by, but a finished blade, I have a feeling a finished blade would just burn the Leadwood. But as always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And until next time, I'll see you. I could have